Ready to salute. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. How nice is this projector? We should probably thank Scott for that when he's around. It's no more Star Wars. Sound works now too, so we get that back in the mix. Let's see, visiting Rotarians and guests. Let's start at this table.
We have our speaker.
I'll
I'll introduce him more later. This is Dan Ersman. He's going to be our program today.
Sorry, turn my back on me. This is Manahar Sign. He's the new professor of professional studies at HSU, and he's new to town, and he's interested in joining Rotary, so everybody be nice to him.
All right, well, good morning. I see we have Ashley here. All right, welcome, buddy. In the back, yes.
Yes, I'd like to introduce my granddaughter from Orland, California. This is Bailey McCarthy.
Right there, Interact. Introduce yourself.
Interact, I'm Scott Ballinger. Instantly born.
And I'm Emma Harris.
All right. No guests here and no guests here. All right. And also, don't forget to, what's that?
Sophie.
Oh, yes. You're here all the time, right?
You guys know me.
Go ahead.
I'm Sophie, freshman North
Don't forget to check in on Facebook on your cell phones and let people know that we are here. You are here and having a lot of fun. Sojourning Sunrisers, Julie, I know you've been on vacation, so I want to hear from you. After you finish chewing, of course.
Yeah, my best friend and I, since Pacific Union School, went on a 2.5-week trip to Paris. She's never been out of the country. And then we spent a few days in London, and we just had a fantastic time. It was just the two of us, and we kind of did what we wanted, and drank a lot of wine, and yeah, it was good.
Wow, yeah. I saw photos on Facebook. Look at the blast. So,
Yeah, it was really fun.
Absolutely. Any other travelers? Yes, Terry.
Marty and I left after Rotary last Friday. Thank you again for Final Friday. You guys were fabulous. We did, I'm not recommending cutting the time to 10 minutes every time, but it worked. It really did. We left and we went down. We went to San Francisco on Saturday and we saw Hamlet at ACT, and it was really not Hamilton, Hamlet. Okay. But it was fabulous, and the actor who played Hamlet was more like in his 40s than in his 20s, which is kind of traditionally the way it's been done, and it worked really well. And the next day we went to Berkeley and had a great time, being grateful we don't live in a place where you can't really find any place to park, ever. And we saw the Temptations musical called Ain't Too Proud, and they've extended it for a month. I highly recommend it. The hardest part was not having a place to jump up and dance to the music, but they did great. It was really fun.
Awesome.
And we came home Tuesday.
That sounds great. Any other travelers? Yes, Brian.
I missed last week. I was at a retirement planning conference in Boston and hadn't been back to Boston in 20 years. And what a clean, amazing city. And it's built up and young and professional. So definitely put it on your list.
All right. Wow. Talk about no parking, huh?
Yeah, don't even try.
All right. Moving on here, we have no anniversaries this past week. Birthdays. Well, that slide. Recognition. So we had a pint night this past Tuesday for the Walk to End Alzheimer's. Rachel, you want to talk a little bit about fun we had Tuesday night, the money we raised? You know any of the numbers?
Oh yeah, it was at the Humboldt Cider Tap Room, which used to be the old local beer bar, same owners, but and it was kind of a raffle my sister and I teamed through together, and 10% of the sales went to Alzheimer's, and we ended up making just under $1,000 just with the raffle. So we don't know what we made with the 10% sales yet. So, and we had a lot of Rotarians there, Rotaractors, friends, family. So it was pretty awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Tomas, do you have anything to say?
I showed up for one pint and got in the picture.
It was a great time. It was a great time. Well played. And Lori suggested I bring this up. So I didn't even think about it, but we have what, 5 Rotarians and 2 North Bay Rotaractors on a softball team this year. So if you could stand up, Tomas, Brian Reeser, Rachel Dami, Melinda, who isn't here, myself, Sophie Cicito, and Logan Ward, the 2 North Bay Rotaractors. We all play on the same softball team in the McKinleyville League, and it's tournament time. Go ahead and take a seat. And last week we pulled off a giant upset. We were the number 6 seed and we beat the number 3 spot. So we get to play again this week. It's one and done. So if we lose, we're out. But we're hoping to upset the number 2 seed and then eventually win the championship. So that's at 12 o'clock at Pillar Park. If you want to come cheer on your Rotarians and some softball, go ahead.
Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday.
Sunday.
Thank you.
Sunday,
Sunday,
12
yes.
o'clock, Pillar Park.
And we wear ties too.
We wear ties. It's at Hiller Park in McKinleyville. Yeah. Anyway, it's been a real fun season. So that was that. Rise events, Rachel, you're going to be leading the meeting.
Yeah, I guess
so.
Cossie Kids Walk, for those of you that are part of the team, it is, or that there aren't, show up. It's at 6 p.m. at the Madaket Plaza this Saturday, which is kind of nice at 6 p.m. because it's also Arts Alive, so maybe we can all hang out afterwards and have an additional Rise event. And our team's doing pretty well. We're a little short of our goal of $2,000, which supports an advocate for a child for a year. So we have raffle tickets for sale at the door, and Kayla and I will be there after the meeting if you're interested in purchasing some raffle tickets. Great prizes. So yeah, We're almost there. Almost $2,000.
All right. And then after that, actually, on the 14th is the Walk to End Alzheimer's. So there's a link in the latest email I sent out to you all about the meeting, and I think there's a link flying around on Facebook too to join our team, and I have a sign-up sheet here as well. And that's going to be on the 14th. There's a lot going on the 14th. It's also the Humboldt State homecoming game, which we have our tailgate rendezvous at. So that'll be fun. Do show up to that. And actually, is anyone here planning on going to the membership and foundation seminar in Fortuna that day? Okay. Terry asked that I get a show of hands, so maybe you guys can.
Howard over there? Oh, no, Ian. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's all on the same weekend. So that's going to be a fun one. And
show of hands on the tailgate too.
can we get a show of hands on the tailgate too?
Oh, good. Okay.
All right. Yeah. That's going to be a good time. And we'll create a Facebook event for that, so we can invite friends and family, and it'll be fun and whatnot. And Rebecca, did you have an announcement?
So most folks know I participate in the Humboldt County Annual Cross Country Run. There have been lots of back and forth on setting the final date. I talked to the organizer at the race I was at yesterday, and they've set it for Tuesday, October 17th. So that's coming up actually pretty quick. So I'm going to be asking for volunteers. I'm going to get Sign Up Genius out. We need people around the course to direct kids. I need people at the chute to make sure kids stay in line. Dustin, hopefully you'll be around. You can actually hand out the medals. We're working with the City of Arcata. It's going to be at the community center again this year, so they'll have bathrooms for the kids, and they'll have hopefully the PA system and everything. It's a super fun event. This event has grown incredibly. This is our 8th year helping participate in it. The first year we did it, there was maybe 100 kids. This year, there are over 300 kids participating in the races. He's concerned that at the final race there might be over 400. I think he's crazy. I think we're fine with 400 ribbons for finishers. But so it's a real big event. Expect more news on that, and I could really use some help. It's a couple hours, and there's nothing like seeing the last little kid run across the finish line. I'm sorry, he's the best or she's the best. It's pretty emotional. So thank you. It's gonna be the races. I'll need people from about 2:30 to 4 to kind of help set up and get organized. Then I'll need people from about 4 to 6 to person the race. Yeah.
Is it going to be the same place as last year?
It is going to be at the Arcata Community Center.
Oh, okay.
Most likely. There's a chance it may be at McKinleyville High, but hopefully we're going to have it at the community center. That is the plan.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great. Absolutely. Susan.
Yes, so if you are interested in or concerned about sea level rise and how it affects all of us here in Arcata, you'll want to turn out tomorrow Beginning at Pasteles on the Plaza, the city will be present with information about sea level rise, including the always fabulous Allison Hunter, to talk to you about that. And afterward, at 1 p.m., there will be a tour at the marsh, and that will show various areas where sea level rise is currently impacting us, and then projected levels that will be impacted possibly beyond our lifetimes, but certainly will affect our children. And then finally, at 2:30, there will be an informational session at the Marsh Amphitheater, and there will be a chance for everyone to let the City Council know what their opinions are about the strategies that they're looking at. So please come, make your voice heard. This is a real example of the public process at work. Thanks.
Great. Or
Tomorrow night is the beer and cheese pairing for Arcata High College and Career Center down at the Sequoia Conference Center. I have the last 4 tickets. This is a sold-out event, so if you are interested, let me know at the end of the meeting. Otherwise, I'm bringing them back up to Arcata High, who's anxiously waiting for them. 6 to 8.
Awesome. We went last year. It is amazing.
It is. The professor from UC Davis is there talking about the beers. Somebody else from Arcata High, the culinary teacher's talking about the cheese. It is so much fun.
What time is it?
6 to 8.
all right, all right. Let's see. Taste of the Holidays. Where's Sarah? Want to give us an update?
Just that Taste of the Holidays is November 16th. If you need more tickets, Rachel has them, and AJ sent out an email for everyone's auction items. So if you haven't got your email, check your email. It should be in there. That's it. Everything's just going smoothly.
Everything's just going right along.
Yep.
All right. That's one of the best parts of the year. Backpacks for kids. I don't see John here this morning, but I believe that's.
He was downstairs.
Oh, so he's probably setting that up. So when he gets back up here, I'll let him do the announcements. But we're going ahead with the Backpacks for Kids starting up. So I'm sure he needs some more volunteers. Oh, there he is. How fast can you walk, John?
Oh, look at that.
Perfect time. I know, right on cue.
Is that
Practice.
Okay, Backpacks for Kids. For people who don't know, this is a project that a bunch of local Rotary clubs do. On Thursday afternoon, someone goes to the food bank in Eureka, picks up cases of food, brings it here in the morning by 7 o'clock. Then we bring it upstairs and pack the food into bags, individual bags, and then they go to schools in Arcata Elementary and Trillium for kids who might not have any other food over the weekend. It's a great project. Did anybody get a sign-up Genius I sent out earlier in the week?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not broken. You all just didn't reply. The idea is I'd send that out, you go, oh, I'll do that. So basically there are 3 jobs. We asked somebody to pick it up Thursday afternoon and bring it by 7 o'clock Friday morning. Packing, which you don't really need to sign up for because it's right after the meeting, right over here. If you've got a couple minutes.
Stay and do it.
Yes, yes, yes. The more people, you know, many hands make light work. It can take 6 minutes if a bunch of people stay, or it can take 20 if there's only a few of us. And then we asked somebody to sign up to deliver the bags to the schools. That takes probably half an hour, maybe 40 minutes if the person at the school isn't where they're supposed to be. There are typically about 30 bags that go to Arcata Elementary and another dozen or so that go to Trillium, which is at the end of Alliance on Spear. Like I said, that takes half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. I'll send out the sign-up Genius again, just in case it ended up in your spam folder. And we'll be packing for the first time this year after the meeting, because the food will get here. So after the meeting, spend 5 minutes helping us pack, and we can all get going.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you, John. Absolutely. Let's see, Howard, do you want to come up and give us a
Yeah, really good news. You know, we applied for a district matching grant for an international project that our World Community Service Committee is organizing this year. And maybe you can just forward it.
Sure.
This is, we're playing a major role in funding the building of a school in a remote village in the Swat Valley in Pakistan. The name of the village is RCAS, and what you see here is a photograph of some of the village elders at the construction site. The ground has been leveled. The land was donated by one of the villagers, and the labor is going to be volunteer labor by the villagers primarily. So the cost of this school is about $27,000. We're playing a major role. We're donating $5,500, of which half of that comes from the district matching grant that we submitted, and it's been approved. That's the message I have to deliver. We've had the matching grant approved by the district. It's a $2,750 match. So this is going to be a great project, and we're playing such an important role in it. And the last slide, yeah, this shows.
Celebrating with sweets.
Now, I want to also tell you that half the students at this school will be female, so apparently we do not have so much diversity among the elders. But it's always been a requirement for our projects that the females are equally represented. Do you have a slide of Zabu?
I think I may have missed the mark here.
Well,
That's the
I saw
last,
it, but
earlier.
Yeah. This is a. Remember, we met Zebu and her husband Arshad, who visited us, and she's the granddaughter of the former ruler of the Swat Valley. They currently live in Princeton, New Jersey, and their life's mission is to help out people in the Swat Valley, which is a fairly impoverished area in Pakistan. So it's just great that we've got this connection. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then up next, let's see, Sophie, do you want to give us an update on?
So I announced a couple months ago that we'll be doing a school supply drive for students in Jamaica. We have a couple members going to Jamaica in December. So I just wanted to let you know that next week I'll be back to collect school supplies. We're looking for pens, pencils, notebooks, anything. If you do want to donate a calculator, I'm going to say do the ones that don't need new batteries. And I think that's that for that. But I also wanted to announce that next Friday, Friday the 13th, we have a costume party at the Arcade Events Hall, 8 p.m. to midnight. So all of you are invited.
Awesome, thank you. You're up. Week.
Oh yeah, this week was the homecoming week, so today's the homecoming dance, and we had to dress up every day and for different topics. Last Friday you saw me in my 80s outfit. And I don't have pictures of every outfit, but we had a pajama day, and yeah, this was who dressed up as someone else, and so I dressed up as my favorite soccer player.
All right.
And last weekend, me and Steve went boogie boarding. Yeah,
nice.
it was really fun. Just the waves were so strong that we couldn't really boogie board. We just divided against the waves. But still it was fun. And we had a campfire and
We do that all the time.
yeah. And it was fun. And a great sunset.
Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you, Izzy. Look at that. Great time. All right, we have craft talk this morning. Mr. Andreas, you want to join us up here?
Sure.
Original picture is the best.
You sure you want to do this?
Okay, so over here, so hang in there. No, just kidding. So my family, this is a picture of my family from a family reunion we had last May, and my wife's the one with the red hat in front of me, and my mom's the one just to the right, and it's various brothers and sisters and nieces and things. So it's my family. My mom is a ceramic artist, and she lives in New Mexico, and she does, that's the kind of art that she does. They're vessels that you can put dried flowers in or whatever, or wall hangings. Those things are about this big. And she and my dad are both from Germany. They came over in 1962 to the US because my dad truly is a German rocket scientist. He's one of those famous guys that everybody talks about. And his big dream was to put a man on the moon. And so that's what he did. So, and for my birth, I probably can't see it, but there's this picture here, there's a signature to me from Jack Schmidt, that astronaut there. My wife Jen, we've been together for 9 years, and we like to be very active together. And the picture on the top there is the picture we met online. That was her profile picture online. So that's the picture I fell in love with and said I need to get to know that lady. So, and she's a surfer too. So I grew up in New Mexico mostly, and the American Southwest, so I like to explore the outdoors, as you can probably tell. And there's lots to explore in the Southwest, the canyons and the mountains and rivers. So my passion happens to be rivers and river restoration. I'll get into that in a minute. And now that I live on the coast, I also like to explore the coast. And sometimes in the East too. And recently I've gotten into scuba diving, and that's been in the last few years, and that's been a lot of fun. All right, so had a long, varied education. I started out at Texas Tech, took a year exchange, went to the University of Malta. Malta's a little island in the middle of the Mediterranean, and that was a really fabulous time. Finished out my bachelor's degree at Northern Arizona State, or Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, and then worked for a little while, and then went back to school, got my master's degree at UC Davis.
Go Ags! Go
So I have a master's degree in civil engineering, and also a professional, licensed professional engineer in California. Okay, so my early work, the interesting fact is I funded my bachelor's degree by doing top secret research on explosives for the military. And then after I got my degree, then I went into civil engineering, and that's one of the subdivisions in Flagstaff that I helped design. My current work is I do river restoration. I focus on the Trinity River, and I work for the Yurok tribe in doing that. And my title is geomorphologist, which is just a fancy way of saying that I study how rivers work. All right, so my real passion, like I said, is river restoration. We do a lot of work on the Trinity for the salmon. That involves a lot of different things. It involves flow releases out of the dam. It involves adding gravel to the river. It involves channel restoration projects along the river. This is one that's just now getting finished up. This is in Junction City, and the river used to be this straight stretch right where the blue lines are, and there wasn't much habitat there, and this is a place where we physically constructed a river meander, so we widened out the banks on either side and put in gravel bars and made the river do a big curve. So that helps with habitat and other things. if you guys ever want to know anything about the Trinity River or the restoration, I'm happy to give a whole talk on that. I love talking about that stuff. My first introduction to Rotary was actually 10 years ago in 2007. Pat Frost, he's this guy here. When I was living in Weaverville, he invited me to go on what was called the Group Study Exchange. I don't believe that program exists anymore, but that was a program that Rotary hosted to take young professionals who are not members of the Rotary Club and take them to some place in the world for a month and show them around, and that's part of their international exchange and promoting peace, and it was also a way to try to recruit young professionals in the club. And so I spent a month in southern Chile, traveling around, had a good time, saw lots of things. I can give a whole nother talk on that if you guys want to know about my time in southern Chile. This top picture here is, that's one of the projects that the district ended up funding when we got back. That's a small dental clinic. It's a free dental clinic for kids. And you can see it looks like a little shop at Ward or something. I mean, you walk in there and you're like, I gotta get out of here, really. So we refurbished that with brand new dental equipment donated from one of the dentists in the district who was upgrading his office. And so that was great. And then that was the first time I've ever touched glacial ice. So that's pretty cool. All right, last thing, I also volunteer at Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm a mentor. This is my little brother, Jesse, and we meet every week for 2 to 3 hours and go do fun stuff. And, so that's really rewarding. I will put in a plug. First off, this club funds Big Brothers Big Sisters every year, so thank you for that. Secondly, they are looking for adult mentors. They have a bunch of kids who can't get placed right now because they don't have any volunteers, especially for boys. So I highly recommend anybody who might be interested. It's a really rewarding experience. So that's it.
So second week in a row, we've had a craft talk. Second week in a row, it's my pleasure on behalf of the membership committee in our club to say that Andres has fulfilled his, satisfied his requirements for his blue badge, and congratulations. All right. All right, so next up we have our guest speaker for today. So
I'll introduce you. All right. I'm pleased to introduce Dan Ersman, who's the new executive director of the North Coast Regional Land Trust. Back in April, he took over, and Allison's on the board too. So woo, go North Coast Regional Land Trust. I've had the pleasure of working with Dan with my work with the Northern Region Council of Land Trusts and going to conferences, and he's been involved in the community for a long time in conservation issues. And he's also a fellow Midwesterner, so. All right. He first moved to the North Coast in 1998, and he has over 15 years experience working in the nonprofit sector with numerous conservation-minded organizations, including former executive director of the North Coast Environmental Center. He's a board member on the Rose Foundation's Northern California Environmental Grassroots Fund and is currently on the McKay Community Forest Advisory Group. He's committed to sustainable communities, protecting and celebrating ecological systems, and supporting one another to create a more resilient future for all life forms, human and wild. So I'd like to welcome Dan.
Well, thanks everybody. It's great to be here this morning. On my way over, I decided to have a change of plans. I had a PowerPoint that we usually give. It's our lay of the land presentation. It's over an hour long. And in all seriousness, it's always a scary proposition when I go off script, when I don't have something prepared. So I apologize in advance for that today. But on my way over, I was listening to the radio and listening to a broadcast talking about the names of the people who the victims of the most recent horrific incident in Las Vegas. And we have a backdrop here of a lot of really horrific events that have been going on over the past year and beyond. But I think that it's important to give voice to that backdrop. We have a lot of issues that we're struggling with, from the storms that have wreaked havoc on the southeast and Puerto Rico and other islands in the Southeast Pacific. We have a lot to grapple with as a community. I think we have a lot to grapple with as a people. And I think that one of the things that brings me to the North Coast Regional Land Trust is the connection that brings us all together. And the North Coast Regional Land Trust was formed in 2000, working to bring people together from all different aspects of our community. It brings together folks from ranching and forest economies to environmental professionals and conservation advocates. North Coast Regional Land Trust was set up initially to work with private landowners to protect, to conserve our wild and our working lands. At the core of our mission is working with landowners to conserve large parcels, large tracts of land, to continue our the social and economic and environmental benefit that is so wrapped up in the conservation of our lands. And I think that North Coast Regional Land Trust has been at the forefront of a lot of the critical issues in bridging the critical community divides. And for many of you who have lived in this area for over the last decades, it's been a pretty amazing journey. And I think where we are today, it gives me a lot of hope to be working across aisles, working with folks from all aspects of the community to conserve the things that we love and things that are so important to us. So with that as a backdrop, I do want to bring out our newsletter, which has a lot of the pictures that you can see in our lay of the land presentation. And I also want to say that the Sunrise Rotary and one of the I've heard a lot of really amazing things about Sunrise, and I've been wanting to come here and check it out. And I have to say, you guys live up to the hype. It seems like an amazing group of people, and I was curious what I'd see when I got here today, a little before 7 in the morning. And when a lot of other organizations that meet, a good handful of folks show up. But to see so much energy and so much excitement and so many people gathered together to talk about the various things that are important for our community, working on how to connect throughout the world, is really inspiring. And so it is definitely an honor to be here today. Going back to the North Coast Regional Land Trust story, when it was formed, it was a group of like-minded individuals getting together around a table and talking about what we need to do. And the value of the landscape was at the core of what brought people together around that table. And in the conversation that followed, one of the critical components that was at a time when we were seeing land being further divided and disallowing landowners to be able to work the land in a meaningful way. It was elevating the price of the land so that our producers, our forest landowners, our ranchers were not able to afford that lifestyle, to afford that ability to maintain the land in productivity and manage resources sustainably. So one of the key tenets of the North Coast Regional Land Trust is to ensure that those lands can remain whole, so that future landowners, future land managers can provide that opportunity and that economic and environmental sustainability long into the future. North Coast Regional Land Trust is built around providing private landowners with the support needed to enter into conservation easements, which we can talk about at length. They're complicated documents, often taking many years to formalize. But these documents run with the land. They work with the landowner to set up the conservation values that are important to them and important to the community as a whole. We do, when I was asked to present here today, there are lots of pictures of the various projects that we're involved in. We've conserved over 25,000 acres through our conservation easements, working with the landowners throughout this region, Humboldt County, Trinity County, Delaware County. We have several properties. One property, our flagship property, Freshwater Farms Reserve, out near Three Corners Market. We just completed an amazing restoration project that has been years in the making. It's the working to restore tidal lands. It's a really inspiring project and working with lots of different stakeholders throughout the region. It's working to reestablish the connectivity and maintain both the agricultural values on the property as well as fisheries habitat that has is in such short supply around Humboldt Bay. And we were talking about sea level rise and issues that we're facing in the future. The projects that we're working on in freshwater farms and other regions are working to build that landscape's resilience. And I think that as we look at sea level rise, as we look at what folks are in the city of Arcata Bottom, the agricultural lands around this region, we do have a lot of issues that need to be addressed, and I think that having properties here along Humboldt Bay that provide opportunities for individuals, for kids, for students, for agencies and members of the public to get out and engage on the landscape is a really inspiring thing. When I was asked at a previous conference to provide 2 slides to tell the story of the North Coast Regional Land Trust, and the 2 slides, the 2 pictures that came to my mind. One is of a group of students standing in one of the pond features that was constructed for habitat. And the kids are wearing little rubber boots and scooping invertebrates out of the pond. And I think that really speaks to the importance of connecting with the youth in our community, with providing opportunities for future generations of landowners or future generations of land stewards. And the other picture that comes to mind is a picture of one of the first monitoring visits that I was on with the North Coast Regional Land Trust. We went out on one of our conservation properties in eastern Humboldt County, and the landowner was looking out at the landscape, beautiful forest meadows, and talking about the generations of his family on the range. And I think that really tied to me the connection to place that is so important here, and the connection to the community as a whole. And it was really inspiring to see such a long-standing and very intentional focus on maintaining the landscapes, not just for their family, but for the surrounding community. So looking at the various aspects of the work, I really do want to plug a few events that are coming up here. We have our annual celebration coming up on October 14th at the River Lodge in Fortuna. And this is a really amazing and empowering event, and bringing lots of different folks together to celebrate all that has been done over the years, and to really provide a place to connect and reach across the table and talk with those that you may not always get an opportunity to. And I think that in looking towards the future, looking towards what we can do as a community, I think that this is really a critical point, a critical place to have those conversations and think about what we can be doing to take the next steps to be more resilient as a community in times of change, and to be more welcoming and sorry. When we have so many issues that we're grappling with, I think that we have plenty of opportunities to be able to get to. So, as I mentioned at the very beginning, when I go off script, it can be really a difficult thing, and sometimes when looking at the world, when looking at the events that are unfolding, it's really a weight that we all can bear. But I do want to actually pull up a few slides that will that will help you process here. That's all right. So, I guess at this point I should open it up to any questions that you may have while I pull this up.
How does this compare to the Williams Act? What's the difference between the two?
So the Williamson Act, a lot of the landowners that we work with have lands that are connected to the Williamson Act that are able. So Northwest Regional Land Trust works on conservation easement projects on properties that can be tied to the Williamson Act. Conservation easement documents are actually they protect the additional conservation values on the landscape. They can run with things like the Williamson Act. They can run with things like the timber production land zoning on the properties.
So they can do both.
They can
Something
do,
that's in the Williams Act can still be accepted.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Yep, yep.
Is this what you wanted?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's great. So, great, sounds good. So I did want to go through really quick our board of directors and advisors that are so critical to the work that we do. I want to recognize Allison Hunter. We work with folks from across the sectors, and I think one of the key pieces in thinking about the connectivity is looking at the landscape and looking at the various conservation easement projects that we have taken on over the years. These range from smaller properties from 20 acres in size to ranches that are over 15,000 acres in size. The last year has been an incredibly eventful year in working on both conservation easement projects and some of the other projects that we're working on at freshwater farms. But going back to the question on the Williamson Act, looking at conservation easement, what we can offer, working with wild and working forests and ranches to protect habitat, streams, salmon habitat, and it does work in conjunction with projects, or working with things in conjunction with the Williamson Act. It does provide significant benefits for the landowners in providing the tax benefits and other benefits into the long term. There are several different ways to work a conservation easement. One, the donated value of the conservation easement can go and provide the landowner with tax benefits. A donated conservation easement is something that is a lot, I think it can be a lot less cumbersome than a fully funded conservation easement. But for funded conservation easements, where we work with state and federal agencies to raise the funds that are necessary to essentially buy those rights, buy the conservation easement. And when you look at private property, you look at the different aspects of land ownership, and you look at the rights that run with that land. The conservation easement can set aside development rights, it can set aside other rights that run with the property, and the landowner can receive significant benefit from selling those rights. And it ties into our the state tax and other tax benefits, as I mentioned. In the years, we've conserved over 25,000 acres of ranches and forest lands. And I just wanted to show a few pictures, as that was probably an error not to start this earlier. But looking at the various ranches and properties throughout the region. Most recently, we have our Lost Coast Forest Lands Indian Creek Conservation Easement project. We have 3 projects. This is one of them that we're working on closing within the next 6 months. This is a critical piece of the Eel River watershed, which provides important coho salmon habitat. And during the time when water is not flowing in other creeks and on the South Fork Eel, this creek, this tributary, is a really amazing source of cool, clean water that fish need and human communities need during times such as drought and when we get to this time of year. So we're also working on a collection of easements out near Willow Creek, 3 conservation easements, smaller conservation easements that are set aside for their conservation values. We've recently received good news that one of our projects that we're seeking funding for out on the Middle Mad River, eastern Humboldt County, will be providing, is hopefully moving to the next level. We've been working on this project for 3 years. As I mentioned before, it can take a long time to get a project like this to completion. The landowners are third generation ranchers that when their parents passed away, this was a property that they didn't know if they could afford. So entering into a conservation easement will allow them the opportunity to provide for management of the property and to retain the land as a whole. So we also have a Google Earth tour that I will not go into, but this is our freshwater farms reserve. And I mentioned earlier the restoration that has occurred on site. We've excavated channels, reconnected the land. A lot of Humboldt Bay has historically been diked off. And as we're dealing with sea level rise and looking to strategies for adaptation, this is a strategy that was brought in by the North Coast Regional Land Trust on this property. A lot of other agencies, organizations are doing this kind of work. This is a perfect location between Arcata and Eureka, and with a trail that we just opened recently for the public's enjoyment. So I'm moving forward really quickly through this. Okay, sounds good. So I did want to I pulled this up because I wanted to get to a few of the photos of Freshwater Farms Reserve, what is going on the landscape. We have the Leland Glen Farm Stand and the nature trail. This. So I did want to end it right here. So bringing folks out to a property, you see the barn that is disheveled. That barn now has a new roof, new foundation, and is going to be able to provide opportunities for future generations, provide agriculture opportunities for the property as a whole. And given that a lot of our properties are on private land, this is a property where people can come and get a sense of what North Coast Regional Land Trust does. And I encourage everybody to check us out, talk with others in the community, and this place is open for educational opportunities. It's open for demonstrations of agriculture in our region. We have a grazing area, we have row crops, we have a nursery that has been recently renovated, and we'll be leasing that out. Anyway, but thank you all so much. And as I mentioned before, I knew it was a dangerous proposition to launch. I should have stuck with this, but coming in with the backdrop, I thought that was important to tie in. So I appreciate your patience today. Thank you so much.
Wheelchair Foundation.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, do we have any, let's do the raffle time. It's quiet in here, so let's get the drum roll.
You gotta be here. 665. All right, another ticket.
Let's do it. Let's do it up. I think so too.
02650.
650.
I think it's Izzy.
It's Izzy. That's Izzy. Yeah, you got it.
We're gonna say it's Izzy.
Good job, Izzy. Wow.
Oh, wait,
You win a lot. 408 test.
Is it the truth?
Well, I mean, if somebody has it, did you have
Grab that.
Whoever got it would want her to have it.
Is it a true fish?
One more.
One more. Let's go.
Oh, wrong line. Come on.
One more, eh?
How do you do that?
202667.
667. Teresa, all right. Look at that. You're winning. All right. Any other announcements before we wrap up? I'll actually follow with Dan's footsteps. They said it's been a tough month, a tough week for a lot of people, so I figured the best quote for Dan is where words leave off, music begins. So thank you, Rotarians, and have a great week, and we'll see you all this weekend and next Friday.